I went to a lot of schools to fortify my mettle, but the best education I ever got was when a maniac walked in and punched me in the eye. Broke 62 bones in my face. That's all that's left. Bunch of metal in a grid pattern. Make my day. Based for some big building. I'm going to tell you about what used to be there.
No reports to
the Rivington School. Garden number 3. Even before that, it started at No Say No. I'm going to tell you the story.
No Say No was an opportunity for people who wanted to test the limits of who they were as artists. So you could go in and someone would attempt to add an element of legitimacy to it, and there was such a force against that that art would immediately get destroyed by the audience itself. So that the only way you could ever possibly enjoy No Say No was to go there with no expectations and write it, and sometimes the ride would be horrific, and it's a little bit like dropping acid. You might have absolutely blissful experience, or you might see all your demons. And so it just became an opportunity for. It was almost like the anus of Soho.
Soho is an abbreviation for south of Houston, which is where we are at No Say No. I'm walking out the door here. We're on Rivington Street in a little downstairs tiny room called No Say No. Right across the street, the New York City Adult Training Center. But that's no education compared to No Say No. No Say No is in the middle of a forgotten real estate landscape where the only reason people come around is looking for trouble, looking for drugs, looking for prostitutes. Cops don't care. No one cares. They're just waiting for this real estate to get valuable again. Here we're looking down the east of Rivington Street, and as you can see, there's nothing around except the garbage on the street. Looking down toward the Bowery there, down Rivington Street across Roosevelt Park, which everybody knows as Needle Park because it's just filled with junkies. Nothing's happening around here except No Say No. This little place that predominantly young and old white Puerto Rican black artists come to raise hell. The anus of Soho. This ain't the art you've heard about.
No say no. No say no. No, no, no. No say no or say no. No Say No, 1983 to 85, was a wild, countrified social club, dance house, cabaret, video lounge, music showcase, performance bar, art gallery, and tomb. No Say No. On May 28, 1983, No Say No opened. At 8 o'clock till midnight, 7 days a week, a summer full of free art events entitled 99 Nights at No Say No rocked the house, included with guest performances by artists from 26 nights at Performance A to Z, storefront for art and architecture, with surprise parties, special effects, and live performance. Jones. There on Rivington Street, Junkies, Champs-Élysées was the old social club, a dank basement painted for bags of Latin locals, a vision of Aztec primal decadence. On the floor in the dark, candle in hand, I found the remains of scores, yet unpaid, a smashed jukebox. No Say No retained its Caribbean flavor with full-color roof to floor murals, a jukebox and performance stage, the bar serving suds, and the promise of still more alternative.
Not caring a shit about anything. Abstracted in the loss of contact with the normal world. Cruising down. Presentiment.
I remember the night you got punched. Jim Marshall and I were standing outside of No Say, and this just like total pain in the ass weird guy kept saying that he had a gun, and with that the cops like showed up. So we said to the cops, like, you know, this guy's fucking around and saying he's got like a gun and shit inside the bar there, and so they go in, they accost the guy, and it turns out that he's been flashing a credit card. Kind of very lucky he didn't get shot 41 times for flashing his credit card as a gun, but he didn't. And the cops came back to Jim and I, and they started doing this thing where they just looked at us and said, that guy, you're basically telling us we should go kick his ass. They didn't want to. And we walked away. And we saw you, actually. You were like going in or something, right? We said, hi, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And we left. And the next morning we heard that same asshole sucker punched you and, like, you know, broke whatever bone this is in your face, right? And so, did they ever, like, arrest the guy or anything?
They arrested him. They arrested him and put him in Bellevue.
Uh-huh.
Because he was clinically insane, and he got out in 15 days and went back out on the street. He was from a very rich family in Connecticut.
Really?
Yeah, he was wearing a suit.
So there was never any restitution made or
No.
nothing? The guy never wrote you a postcard wishing you well, or?
He was unable to stand trial by reason of insanity.
But that's like a pass out to the streets, huh? That's good. Good.
That's our mentally ill program now.
Yeah. I guess Marshall and I should have gone and kicked his ass, but it just didn't seem that important at the time. Had we known, we would have actually probably had we seen him again, we would have. It was such an asshole. Yeah, I remember he was wearing like a business suit.
So describe No Say No, like what it was.
Well, it kind of changed. The first time I went there, it was very much like a Puerto Rican social club with the murals of the beach. A whole sort of. I forget. There's some word they used to describe those things, but this kind of tropical mural that ran the length of the bar, and a lot of black lights, very loud. Lo-fi sound system. Tremendous amount of drinking, power drinking kind of thing, beer and whiskey or whatever. Apparently there's a lot of like speed too, which I wasn't a part of. But I remember going out with everybody afterwards, like Dan and Jack and Marshall, and after having like at 5 a.m. going to like 103, and which was a restaurant, and having been with them all night, they were still being witty and chatty and funny, and I was like basically falling over into my poorly cooked eggs.
Electronic canvas. Electronic canvas.
Why is this the
Hey, get him, let's go. God is the sum total of the physical laws of the universe, not by chance. No say no. Communication and information theory, sir. I wanna be your tattoo baby. Communication and information theory, sir, is a continuous reality, regardless of what the signs of any meaning. The communication theory, which is like America. $1.50. On whiskey, it's $1.50. On a bag of cigarettes, it's $1.50. Everything here is $1.50. What do you want? Beer? Good man. Back to whiskey. This is white. White. This is white. Lucky you didn't get here earlier. We might have got you drunk. $1.50. What?
Now, the No Say No started, as I recall, as a spin-off from a place that had been the storefront for art and architecture, which was a marginal gallery that was on Prince Street, just east of Lafayette, which at that time wasn't really part of Soho or the established art scene. It was really sort of just an edge. And they got a grant and got a bigger space, and so a young man named R.L. Seltman, who's a picture I have right here, he took over their lease and started to just book performances there. He actually had a young lady giving massages in the place.
This No Say No was one step deeper into the muck of things. Storefront was, and the reason why Storefront still exists and the other one doesn't, is Storefront was, like I say, halfway house. We were, in a sense, giving a Soho facade to what was happening on the Lower East Side. And No Say No was actually the Lower East Side. It was a bar. So it became more of an after-hour event. There was no pretenses of it being a gallery. It was more anarchistic, and it attracted that aspect of art which has no boundaries. I think the people who, in the initial experience of Storefront, were people who still thought of art as object, art as symbol for communicating ideas. And No Say No was more about experiential art, about art as life. And in the case of the Lower East Side, which meant lots of violence, lots of the merging of medias without any sort of rationale, so that one minute it appeared to be painting, the next minute it appeared to be poetry, and the next it would be dance. And there was no way to categorize it in any of those forms. They would just continually melt and merge. While in the store for art and architecture, you would have a dancer, and you'd have a classical musician, then you'd have an architect. In No Say No, all of those things just continually. it's a little bit like morphing on a computer, where faces change and you don't really know what you're looking at anymore. And so that's what was No Say No. No Say No was much more in tune to the raw politics, the harder realities. What we were no longer liberals talking about the poor people. We became the poor people. And the artists that we were serving were people who were living on the edge. And, so it was a much more dangerous time as you experienced the violence that you received. And,
you to do exactly as I do. 'Cause I gotta tell you something. I was getting so sick of Ronald Reagan's bullshit back in 1983 that I did not want to get out of the bathtub. And my record was skipping. My record was going over and over and over and over and over and over again. It got to be where I liked it.
6 o'clock.
And it occurs to me that I'd like to tell you about the defining moment of my life. I recorded this record skipping and I took it down to Rivington Street to a little dank, dark performance bar called No Say No, where you get on top of the stage and you do anything that you wanted. I wanted to play my skipping record tape. And I wanted everybody to bang something. I was so sick of everything I was hearing on the air, and it occurred to me that it's repeating. It's repeating.
6 o'clock.
A homeless, mentally ill guy walked into No Say No, observed me on top of the bar, and when I got off the bar, he wound up and punched me right in the face, and I went flying like an atomic bomb had landed. He waited around and the cop took him away. He was nuts. The cop asked him, "Hey, why'd you punch that guy?" He said, "I didn't like him and I didn't like his music." They took him to Bellevue. He was out in 15 days, unable to stand trial by reason of insanity. It was the most defining moment of my life.
Make my day. 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 Make my day.
True story. I came into the bar one night early, 5 o'clock in the evening. Locked the door behind me. I was down behind the bar rearranging the bottles and cleaning up the mess from the night before. Then I popped up and there was a guy standing there looking at me who claimed he was the devil, and I believe he was.
You didn't listen to it. It was going from a smile to a fucking...
It's true though, we had like this conversation that was like completely out.
You had a conversation with the devil?
Oh yeah, he was there for 45 minutes, and I turned around, turned back, and he was gone. I swear. They said they called him Red. He was a fiddle player in Massachusetts. I don't know how this guy got in there, and I don't know how he got out. It was one of the strangest experiences of my life.
Defining moment of your life?
Scariest. The devil.
So RL then went to look for another space somewhere else on the Lower East Side because the lease was out on the place on Prince Street and the rent was going to go way up. And wandering around Rivington Street east of Forsyth, which was really a heroin hooker zone, a mostly Dominican ghetto, he walked into this little storefront where I guess he was mistaken for a cop or some undercover agent, in that he was white and overweight and had sort of wire-rimmed glasses, none of which you saw down there most of the time. And this woman attempted...
The mom let me down into it, and she stood outside. And I went inside, and I'm going in the back, and it's your typical brownstone basement storefront.
Yeah.
And I'm going inside, and there on the floor is a pile of money, big pile of money. So I go, and I get start to shake, right? And then I realize that the window is open, right, going into the back venter shaft, and quickly kind of figure out what's going on, right? So I kind of get down on my knees, and I say to the super who's waiting outside, right? Does this refrigerator work? And I'm taking up the money in my pocket, right? And I said, well, gee, how much is the rent, you know? And I'm saying, maybe I can't afford this, and I'll see you later. I got outside, and I just took off down.
That became the no say no. No say no is, I guess, a Spanish expression for I don't know anything, or I don't know nothing, which is what you'd be answering when a drug dealer approached you, or a cop approached you, or a mugger approached you. And so anyway, he decided to carry on this performance thing, and in conjunction with Arlene Schloss, who is known as A, who'll probably be interviewed later in the show, he came up with this idea of 99 nights of performance from A to Z. And it was consecutive nights. It's a beautiful calendar, and every artist had one night to themselves. I, as Howie Solo, did one night, and a lot of great people were there, and the people who started to run it after RL left was Arlene's husband was a sculptor named Ray Kelly. Ray would later become the sort of king of the Rivington School, but that's probably a whole other story. But Ray started to run an illegal bar out of the place because without a state liquor license you couldn't sell beer or liquor. And he started to do it. James Marshall, he became a bartender. There was another guy named Dennis who was a regular bartender.
I was behind the bar. They came in when things were kind of popping. I think there was a band had just finished or something. Music was blasting. I was pretty, feeling good. And I remember turning around and somebody shining a flashlight at me. And we use flashlights there a lot. So I just turned around, and one of the mantras of the place, perhaps the mantra of the place, was just simple yeah, but yelled at the top of your lungs like yeah. And so somebody's showing a flashlight at me. He's behind the bar, and I just turn around and go yeah, and then I look, and it's an undercover cop. But it was, they were expecting guns and drugs and lots of cash, and they found a couple cases of Pabst and some half-empty bottles of cheap vodka and rum and whiskey, and $40 or something. So we were closed for the night, but we had a court appearance, but none of it was that big of a deal, really. Yeah, it was just a drag.
it was almost like the anus of Soho, because everything that the society wanted to expunge, everything that the society felt it had to express but couldn't in its legitimate spaces, would be funneled down into No Say No. So people would it was it's the last resort bar, sort of. It's you could always do it to No Say No. Do you know what I'm saying? So what the policy of New York has always been, I think, is to allow it to dissipate, to allow the shit to come out, have places where it can be expressed, and just to allow it to flow through areas and regions it doesn't want it. So you have a new mayor now that does that, right? So you have regions where he keeps everything sparkling and flowing, keeps it good for commerce, and then it has to break out somewhere. So if one's very sensitive to the larger organism of New York City, they will find a No Say No somewhere in New York City right now. There's a No Say No phenomenon. We were the No Say No that represented this tremendous art commercial phenomena of Soho at that time, right? And this incubating art class, right? Mixing in with the ABCs, the American-born Chinese, who were being forced out of Chinatown, coming in from Hong Kong, right? Well, of course, it was an area rich in history that was now a shadow and a bit sad. Our neighbor was a little bit further down was a old temple that had been abandoned and purchased by a young sculptor, and so what once was a prosperous Jewish community for merchants was now in front of that temple was a line every day of heroin addicts buying from their dealers. It was institutionalized criminality. It was just heroin prostitution, and poor people just trying to live their lives. Of course, there were children there who were just going to school, and there were businessmen who were going to work, and there was heroin addicts who were just shooting up. The artists represent, in a sense, the articulation of despair, and once that statement is made, then that's both an opportunity for progress from a political point of view, and it's also an opportunity for progress from the right's point of view. And that's why New York works, because then once No Say No allowed all this stuff to come out and stuff, then they could reevaluate the community and they could go in and do their thing. So it was both, the curious predicament that artists are in is that they represent both God and the devil at the same time, and everything that the artist does succeeds on both fronts at the same time. They were succeeding in telling the world about. There was a lot of things that were happening that was pointing to the problems of that area, and then it also at the very same time was pointing to the potential of the area. And so the bad guys came in, took their potential, and the political people took their potential. And we have to decide who's going to win. I'm not sure.
Say No was written above the door. So that's what we call it.
The thing that was unique about the No Say No was, like I said, it was the worst fucking neighborhood in the armpit of the fucking universe of the English of Soho, as R.L. said. And, you know, they had, you know, people from all over the world would come there and just fucking hit, you know, and they'd have performance and music and art and poetry and all this kind of, all kind of different stuff, and sculptors and painters, and, you know, it was really like a collaboration of, like, pretty much all the most driven but non-kind of commercial connected lunatics at the time that lived downtown and also were kind of infiltrating from Europe and wherever. It was just so beautiful. It was wild. And one night I was there, and after the performance was done and after the music was done, and one night we're hanging out there, and they were doing this like sweep at the time. New York City Police Department was this crime sweep of the neighborhood pre-Giuliani. My girlfriend's up, this beautiful, rich WASP girlfriend who's now married to the producer of Batman or something, living in Hollywood. She's up on the bar dancing with her breasts out, like naked, and my sax player, his girlfriend, his wife is on the bar dancing with her tits out, and they're having a great time, and we're like there, and we're drunk on, again, we never seem to shift out of heaven and hell, cheap shit whiskey. And the crime sweep, just like the street crime unit of drugs at the time, like they were looking for all these drug centers of the Lower East Side, and they heard the music. They heard the music, and they were coming to bust this drug arms kind of place. You know, they knew we had guns, they knew we had drugs and stuff, and these guys rushed us at 5 in the morning, and we were just smashed. We were just like, you know, young American psychotic kids smashed on art and conceptual stuff, and they rushed us and came in with their fucking 350 whatever's, you know, pointed at us, hands in the air. And I remember my girl just put her hands in the air with her breasts in the air. And Mr. Thing's wife, I think, sorry Mr. Thing, I'm telling about this one. I think it was Patu. Patu, was that your titties there? Yeah, I think so. You know, hands in the air, breasts in the air, and we all went like this. All of us, we were all completely shocked. These cops like, oh, hands in the air, come on! And we were like, oh shit. They searched us all, and these guys were so confused to be in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, junkie neighborhood, Lower East Side, pre-white people, pre-yuppies, pre-anybody. Back in the early 80s, they couldn't find any drugs or any weapons, and it was Hank Williams on the jukebox, and they didn't know what the fuck we were doing there. They had no idea, and they were so confused. And I tried to explain to them as best I could that that's because we were so confused, and that's why we were there, you see, and that was...
So they arrest anybody?
No. They just left, like, just, you know, have a nice night, kids, you know. They were like, thank you, sir, you know.
They didn't take the beer or anything?
No, nothing. Nothing. They were looking for drugs and weapons, you know. And
because I remember another night they took beer, they took the
not this
alcohol.
Night. Not this night. No, they did it to me last year. You know, Giuliani took my beer. Never gave it back. But the thing was to me. You know.
Quality of life for the now legendary Adam Purple had manifested itself in the single-handed building of this beautiful garden. It was a wonder to the world and stood there, right behind No Say No. It had just been written up in National Geographic magazine. But the landlord, the city of New York, would soon plow it under. There was a strong real estate lobby who was suddenly attracted to this once forgotten wasteland of real estate, which with the taking off of the downtown art scene had suddenly become very attractive. The yuppies were coming. Rents were skyrocketing. Police had to be called in, if not for a safety issue, for a quality of life issue.
They then came to us, and my heart was really beating fast because, you know, I was paranoid as I am. They said, you guys are okay. Just get out of here. Take your instruments and get the fuck out, you know. And then they proceeded to, I believe, incarcerate Ray and James Marshall and Dennis, as well as the liquor and beer as evidence, and one or two of the patrons as corroborative testimonial or some crap like that. This struck me as being a bad sign. Because it used to be these after-hours places thrived on Lower East Side. Nobody gave a damn. And now suddenly they're under scrutiny. Well, it was a sign of what was to come, because I believe that very Monday morning, I think it was Monday morning, we were in the club again and stayed up all night, and it was surreal. We opened the door. It was like, you know how you've been up all night, you see the sun, oh my God, it's 7 o'clock, shit. There was guys with helmets, sticks, real serious stormtrooper, special cops going down Rivington Street. This was the beginning of what became known as Operation Clean Sweep. This is when Ed Koch was mayor, Benjamin Ward was police commissioner, and it was the first black police commissioner in a long time, and the idea was to clean up the East Village and the Lower East Side to make it safe for gentrification, which I mentioned earlier, little white people moving into apartments that had once been, roach-infested shooting galleries. And I remember all this particularly because we then went back to No Say No. It reopened. I think they did it again illegally. Maybe they only served beer and they charged the membership fee out of a card, so it was a social club. It did become like the No Say No. It was a social club, therefore legally it was okay. No Say Members, social club, therefore legally it was okay. You were members being served and you weren't actually soliciting liquor. There was a loophole in everything anyway. And the result was that we got this song, which is based on the 3-chord rock Louie Louie. It was Louie Louie, oh baby, down to No Say No tonight. And then I remember I made up this verse spontaneously about Operation Clean Sweep. It's really doing a job. And Koch and Police Commissioner Benjamin Ward got the boys in blue cleaning up our streets. And all that kind of stuff. They're knocking out the hookers and putting down the halls and making it safe for white educated scum to buy apartments late at night. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, yeah, I was quite apparent from the very beginning. You see, the thing about it is that its very nature was uncontrollable. That's what made it work. The people who suited it most were the people who flourished on that kind of chaos.
It's not working.
It wasn't working. They just let it go. I think what was really happening was that people wanted to die, and they were using their art to commit suicide. So it was quite clear that it was very suicidal. It was really the dark side. And it was coming out of anger because we could see, you mentioned, for example, the real estate phenomenon. There were forces that people couldn't contend with. The economic realities, people who never faced the economic realities of their choices as becoming artists. So it's pure. It's really pure stuff. There were no blemishes because it was a blemish. It was absolute and pure. And it just continued on for years after I left. The cowboy was there. I mean, he was perfect for that situation because I played the role of the mother, he played the role of the father in a bad marriage. And this, he really made it happen because he wanted to ride. He wanted to be a bronco. He let people go. He let people go. See, if I was there, I would keep replacing the light bulbs and trying to make things bright. And his job in life has always been to smash the light bulbs. Initially, the art was much more subtle, and it wouldn't last the night. It wouldn't last the night because if it was, for example, it was made of paper, if it was poetry that required listening, right? It wouldn't be heard. But if it was steel, and if it was leather, or if it was rough and hard, it could survive the night, and it would just be stuck on the wall, and then others could come and kind of piece reality from that.
If I can just say, let me have a memory thing here. When we moved into No Say No, it did not have a fire exit. We built a fire exit in the back of No Say No. That was the first weapon piece of metalwork coming out of No Say No. In fact, the whole Rivington School came out of fire exit in the back of No Say No. 1 week after we burnt that fire exit, built that fire exit in the back of No Say No, through the window, fires now, that nightclub uptown, trapped, burned down because they did not have a fire exit in the back nightclub. We knew we were on the right track. We knew we had the law on our side. So that was the legal basis for our...
Pretty soon, by '84, No Say No stayed open for a while, and a lot of people exploited it. Like they tested out their performances there, did them later at an established venue like the Kitchen, or, you know. But by '84, the East Village art moment, because it wasn't a movement, it was one moment, had happened. And the Art in America 1984 summer issue really had it all. It was a big article, but I don't want to plug any of those writers, so I'll get back to No Say No. But by '85, the No Say No was kind of finished. It's kind of like Studio 54, you know, it got real big in a short time. And right around the corner was a big empty lot, and that became the Sculpture Garden. And that was where the Rivington School was founded and established.
Now put your wheels in motion. I got a tiger right here, my tang. Rev 'em up, honey, do it for hang. Well, I don't care if you ain't got no money. You look like you got big bucks, honey. I got something we can take to the bank. We'll cash it in and let you do it for hang. I don't care if you ain't that smart. I don't care about your cheating heart. Oh, honey, that ain't the part that I want. Won't you do it for hang?
Yeah!
How it worked, right? How No Say No worked, and how Rivington School had worked, because Ray Kelly, he was always there, and he's of course he's a founder, and his character, you know, it's not easy to describe. He don't talk too much, and you know, he drink, and he doesn't look like, you know, not too much. He doesn't have responsibility, but he has a very, you know, interesting figures, which people like it. I like too. So I work since with Ray since 1983, since No Say No.
Well, this school was called the Rivington School. It was on Rivington Street. So they said, aha, that's it. And they had the name. And of course, you know, artists are in schools like the New York School and the San Francisco School, the Paris School. So here we had the Rivington School led by Papa Ray Kelly. And there was a whole lot of other people, but it was welding and sculpture. So they would come in and they'll say to pee and to get the beers cold. And that was the sort of social club. And then they'd go outside and teach welding and get involved with members of the community and have these incredible pig roasts. And there's performance pieces. And one year, I think on July 4th, we played there on a metal scaffolding. And we did like Crosby, Stills and Nash tribute or some weird 60s covers. And anyway, it was a great scene. You could always just hang out. People met their wives there. Their relationships were formed there. People cheated on their wives there. People urinated in old television sets and slept in abandoned taxis. There was a great intermingling between the professionals who sort of lived and worked in the area as they got ready, and their pimps and the cops who were sort of just babysitting them, and us, the drug interaction. It was a very nice symbiosis across the classes. So I, anyway, got a grant from the New York State Council of the Arts for community interactive art or something like that. Interactive didn't mean computer, that it meant like going and shaking hands with a minority person and saying, son, get off drugs and come be an artist with nice white guaylo, you know, college kid here. So I paid around the place for a few months and helped toil out, and we put up this exhibition called The State of the Streets, which had a history of the Lower East Side. And it showed how little had changed in 100 years. And it was interesting. Rolando Vega, Nancy Pearl was his wife at the time, and he did this show called like Art on Wheels or something on Wheels, Vagrancy on Wheels. And he had artists develop work that they could like skateboard around in, or shopping carts. They all came from various sites and showed up at the opening. I had t-shirts made that used the triangle factory burning with a map of the Rivington School, and it said "Stay on the Street." And I paid everyone who was in it like $50. And you know, many people were amazed that they actually got a check from the New York State Council on the Arts. And I think for Kevin, wasn't it Kevin Wendell, or the guy who was known as Fuck You, and his buddy who was Bill Fain, who was later arrested for beating up his girlfriend. And they were amazed. They, you know, their names were spelled right on the card and all that stuff. So it was my moment as an impresario. And I took advantage of it. I did a rap piece. We were jamming that night, and out of nowhere, we were doing blues. This quote black guy, this jazz guy who really looked authentic, just walked right in, stormed through the crowd, came up on stage.
6 o'clock. Everything. 6 o'clock is a symbol of no say no, symbol of freedom, total freedom, anarchy, everything. 6 o'clock is everything. Garden, Rivington School Sculpture Garden, we started 85. That time, you know, 6 o'clock became the Rivington School symbol. You can see, you could see, you know, 6 o'clock graffiti in the sculpture garden all over. Or, you know, all over the Lower East Side. People likes it to make, you know, paint the 6 o'clock symbol because very simple and, you know, attractive for people. See, and people are painted on jacket. This guy, Jeff Perrin's jacket. This is somebody collaborated, Higgins or Ken or Fuck You. I guess Fuck You. Yeah, a few people painted Jeff's jacket.
Rivington School.
This is me. That's Ray. Or actually, this is Ray, and this could be any one of us, because it's got the arc welding. It's arc welding, that's octoacetylene welding over here.
They built a big building there.
Well, what happened was we were welding stuff up. We had welded a tower, for whatever reason we were doing, about 30 feet tall on the ground horizontally. And we had guy ropes and pulleys, and all of us raised it back up into a straight position, welded it up. Surprised nobody got killed on that one. And then the landlord, Chinese landlord, whose land it was, got a ticket for having an unauthorized sculpture over 20 feet. And then at some point later, Monty Canson was doing, I am leader of people from Lower East Side.
Since I was like a graffiti type of sculptor, and we had lots of graffiti, you know, punk style, warrior style artists. Strong. And let's make a street museum, I told, you know, Jeff Perrin, Fuck You, and Linus. This, in a sense, I feel like this Rivington School, in a sense, at the end, called Rivington School, was like that kind of spontaneous outdoor sculpture called Rivington School. Was like that kind of spontaneous.
All kinds of stuff. And,
Los Lobos.
At some point, some of the guys there had been welders, artists, painters of all sorts, and they started welding trash cans onto car bumpers, and there was a vacant lot down at the end of the street there at Rivington and Forsyth.
That's why I was planning for the, you know, some project for the first anniversary. You know, wrapping something or, you know, something, you know, looks new for sculpture garden. Then I decided paint white. It was fun work. 6 o'clock, right? Rivington School spirit is a kind of a squatting spirit. You know, free. They can pick anything from the, you know, city junk, industrial materials, waste, industrial waste, washing machine, and office table, desk, or, you know, any kind of metal, they can weld together. Chairs,
And somewhere a little bit long in after that, the bulldozers came, tore it all down. What happened is there was another vacant lot just further, a little bit further north on Forsyth. Jack Vengro brought his big, huge female sculpture down there. We welded it up there, and before long, we had moved everything down there. Started having the barbecues there, more weldings.
That's why, Rivington School, start moving.
America had taken notice. A contingent of the Rivington School called the Hank Q5 flew to Japan. A cultural exchange, organized and documented by Toyo, a photographer, 2 welders, a painter, and a sculptor. Don't call it junk art. Are you okay? While they were building up the second sculpture garden in America, Fuck You was showing the Japanese. Yeah! This was precision stuff. It lasted a month in Japan, and the Rivington School became world famous. Germany, Poland, Canada, everywhere they wanted to learn. The city of New York had destroyed Adam Purple's Garden of Eden, but the Rivington School was building on it right now. 1989, 1990, 1991, 1992, it went on and on. Metal and garbage being recycled. It was America! 6 o'clock!
Well, you wanna get rowdy, you wanna get loud, you wanna get down with a real cool crowd. Come on, baby, you know who to thank. Hey, good looking, won't you do it for Hank?
Second Rivington Sculpture Garden was bigger than the first, bigger than all the rest of all time. But in trying to tell you what the Rivington School really was, it really wasn't about this material space. It was more about describing the space with time and beer. No one and everybody owned it. It was the antithesis of the me decade, where everyone asks, "Are you okay?" It wasn't merely neoism or some sort of post-Dada movement, as some people described it. The Rivington School was the pioneering spirit of America, where quality meant something. Having a good time with friends meant something. 6 o'clock meant something. And so, of course, the pigs came and destroyed it. People knew you could start at 6, or it meant maybe that's the end. In any case, it was a very important time. It was a state of community group-mindedness, telepathic or group mind states. Country music, or what? The welds were strong, and the city had a hell of a time tearing it all apart.
The city, they got a fence around the property. They've thrown out all the sculptures and the bulldozers in there. They're digging a big pit. It's not going to be the same sculpture garden it was. All that's left is the clubhouse, the Rivington School shop.
On 2nd and B, the gas station was established, an offshoot of the Rivington School.
It's a sad adios.
Having come up since No Say No, it was personal to me. The Rivington School and the city of New York had come to a deal with lawyers. The city lawyers promised the Rivington School a new lot because of the community outreach that Howie had set up a few years earlier. But the city would renege for about 4 years, until 1996. What they offered was a small lot on 6th Street between B and C. This became the 3rd Rivington School Sculpture Garden. It was so magnificent that people took to the streets when they were telling them, hey, this one had to be bulldozed down too. There were lots of gardens that were being told they had to be bulldozed down, and it was like a police state on the Lower East Side and in the Bronx and Brooklyn, where gardens mimicking the Rivington Street garden were cropping up. People wanted to express themselves.
Big garden protest here. We're right outside of the Rivington School garden. One of the foremost sculpture gardens in the world.
This garden had a bird sanctuary.
Upside down. Well, that would be a sign of distress.
It had a forge and vegetables and a children's yard. It had something for everybody, and it didn't cost the taxpayers 1 cent.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
And it was the best damn education in America.
Started telling her friends she's going to be a star.
They had a hell of a time destroying this garden. Like I said, the garden ain't the school. They needed a good foundation. Well, we're back where we started. The site of the Rivington School.
You know, they say they wanted to build a big building here, and they tried to. They started digging around it. They hit a water table, a swamp. Some people say that swamp was beer and piss.
Hey, good looking, won't you do it for hand? When you feel like you got that notion, you wanna put your wheels in motion. I got a tiger right here in my tank. Rev 'em up, honey, do it for hang. Well, I don't care if you ain't got no money. You look like you got big bucks, honey. I got something we can take to the bank. We'll cash it in, won't you do it for hang? Won't you do it for hang? Well, I'm the seventh of the seventh son. Well, I'm a truck driving son of a